Hi, welcome back to my studio. I'm Barbara Swift and you're watching BSwiftArt. This is my little dog Coco. There's a thunderstorm coming, so she's got to be in Mama's arms. So usually it storms every afternoon here in Florida, and I don't get to paint with but one arm because she's always in this arm. Anyway, today we're going to do a really fun painting. We're going to do roses, and they're going to be wet on wet technique. It's going to be real loose, really whimsical. I'm going to show you how to control your water so that you can get desired effects. And we're also going to put ink on top of the watercolor painting. And then we're going to do the opposite. We're going to put watercolor on top of the ink. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's get started. Before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you who have subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate that. And those who have pressed the like button. It helps me grow my YouTube channel, so I really appreciate it anyway. Thank you so much. And if you like my videos, go ahead and push the subscribe button and the like button, and we can add you to our count there. Thank you so much. Okay, this is the paper I'm using. It's an Arches pad that's 140 pound, and I'm using a black velvet silver brush that is a number 4, so it's pretty fine round brush. And then I have my Magello Mission Gold paints, and this whole tab or palette is full of the Mission Gold paints. I've kind of spritzed them down first, got them all ready to go. So first I'm going to start out with a green. You can use any green that you like. What I like to do though is grab the very end of the brush. That makes your wrist nice and loose so you can make really kind of random sweeps with your brush. This is olive green. So I'm just going to throw in some stems. You don't have to be very particular at this point. A lot of what I'm painting now, you're not even going to really see too much in the finished painting. This painting is just very loose, very whimsical, and I want to give some credit to Deborah Lynn Rosenbaum. She's on YouTube, has a great YouTube channel, and she does these loose watercolors with wet on wet technique, and she uses mixed media. I think you might enjoy hers, but this is one of her favorite brushes, or one like it anyway. It's a big quill from China, and it's golden Taklon, if I said that right, and it's a 240, so it's really big. So Silver Atelier is who makes it, and I just got it on Amazon. But here I'm dipping into my paint now, so that brush holds a lot of water and a lot of paint. That's why I like it so much. So it really just soaked it all up, and I'm just going to start randomly plopping down some paint and thinking in my head that these are going to be some sort of flower. At first I thought maybe poppies, maybe I'll do some poppies. So I want a nice bouquet of them, and I'm going to put it all in a vase in the end, but I don't have a clear picture in my head what I'm doing. I'm just kind of playing with the color and seeing how it wants to flow and move on my painting, and that's going to tell me what direction to go. This is a great exercise, especially for those who are just learning to paint, because you start to learn how to control your water puddles. So some good tricks in here, how to do that. And I learned those from Deborah Lynn Rosenbaum. So yeah, go check out her channel. Okay, so I'm putting in my little flowers. And now I'm just taking some clear water and I'm going around to soften some of those edges. So that was the permanent red that I used. And I'm just taking water, softening the edges, and bringing it out to loosen it up. And then I'm bringing it out all the way to the edges, very watered down, very little pigment in my brush, just using water and the pigment that's already in there and the pigment that is spreading from where I touch the edges of those flowers. So I just put a little bit here and there. Again, I'm not worried about it smearing because we're going to add lots and lots of layers on this. going to be fun. Already you can see some of the petals, coming to the forefront. I'm just going to add a little bit of, I think I got permanent rose here. Yeah, permanent rose. We'll add a little permanent rose on there, just tipping the little tops just to give it another pop of color, like maybe where the light would be, highlighting the red a little bit. So just a little bit, dab a few in, and just letting the paint do its thing. It's wet on wet, so that paint is moving. And next I'm coming in with red violet, which is a really pretty color. It's a purple, reddish purple. And I really like that because it'll add a lot of depth. So I'm just going to drop some in, kind of staying away from that top edge, focusing more on the bottoms of my flowers. But again, I'm not necessarily putting petals individually on there. I'm just letting the paint flow and letting some of that color I already put on stay revealed. Okay, so now this is going to be the fun part here. I'm reaching here. I'm going to get me, I'm thinking, I gotta think just a second before I do this. Yeah, okay, I think I'll switch up my brushes now. So I just want a finer round brush. So this looks like a number 4 also. And I'm just gonna add some leaves in. I was gonna dab out some of the water, but I changed my mind. Let's put some leaves in first and then do that. And, at this point, I'm thinking they're poppies, but they do end up being roses. So, but I got a little bit of my darker green now. So this is Van Dyke green. Let's put a little bit of that in there. So I had some sap green, some Van Dyke green, before I used the olive green. Yeah, I'm going to put a little bit more olive green in there. I like the olive green. It has a lot of yellow in it. And then the Van Dyke green is dark, so I can put a little of that. Whatever green you want, whatever you have, whatever kinds of paint you have, it'll all work. Let's put some leaves on the top over here. And I put some on the bottom of the flowers. I like it when the green bleeds into the flowers. So I'm just kind of letting that touch there so that that'll bleed into the other flower next to it. And I'm not being real fussy. Oh, there's a little hair stuck in there. This is the fun part. This is single ply toilet paper, or we'll call it toilet tissue if you want to be fancy. But it's the kind that doesn't have a print on it, doesn't have any quilts on it. It's Scott's. That Scott's 1000. I'm just getting some of that water up. Look at that. Changed the whole thing. Whole thing's changed now. You can even see where I put fingerprints in it. But I'm going to leave that there because now I have some lights and some darks. I'm going to put some more dark on. It is wet, so it's going to still move. It's still going to, cover those flowers up. So I'm putting a little bit more of the red on there. Permanent red. And now I'm thinking, oh, yeah, they're still kind of poppies, but they could be roses. I didn't really put leaves for roses, but I can always add some more leaves on there. So I like how the light is in the background, so I'm going to try to leave that light and the darker in the front, because that makes it look like there's petals in the forefront kind of wrapping around the flowers there. And I'm going to put a little bit of blue in here now and let that paint kind of do its thing in the flowers. So I'm going to start working on the background. So, nice blue sky in the background, make it kind of happy. And if you notice, wherever I put that pink there and smudge that into the background, the red, it makes a little bit of a purple. And where the green is, it'll, you can always see those colors underneath. Makes the painting more interesting. We'll put it in between. Try not to cover up every single speck of white. It's really hard to do that. but try not to. Okay, and I am using cobalt blue and cerulean blue. So get it all kind of wet, let it mush around, let those colors underneath poke through. And this is very light at this point, very light, but you can start to see the flowers coming through. At first it's just a big mess and you think, oh my, making a big messy painting, but oh, it's got some puddles there. I'm gonna blot up. Make sure you turn your paper so that you're using a clean spot all the time, otherwise you're just going to transfer that paint onto another spot where you don't want it, kind of like a print. And get a little bit off my table so I don't lean into it and get it everywhere. And I'm looking at my painting here and I'm thinking, oh, wow, that background's wet. Let's just see what happens if I drop a little bit of some really watered down watercolor in there. And that big brush is perfect for this because it holds so much water. There, look at how it's dispersing into the background. That's nice. I like that. Okay, you can see how wet it is. It's still all wet. So just do a side view here and you can see that sheen. That's where it's really still wet. You can see that those colors have kind of blended and see the background colors poking through still. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little bit more red in that foreground, maybe a little on the top edges of those flowers. And I'm going to take a bit of that darker color and pop it in the center and just let it do its thing. This is a rigger brush or a liner brush. And I'm just going to make some little branches. One thing you got to think about though when you're making these branches is you're going to have a vase down there, so you don't want to go outside the vase, obviously. One of them kind of straight over there to the left, but I'm going to make a rounded vase so it'll be all right. And I'm going to put some leaves in here. And this is sepia that I'm using for the leaves. Just like 2 swishes with my brush. Swish, 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 swish. Can you say that? Anyway, deepen up those little centers because I think they're going to be roses, not poppies. So I'm going to make that the center. And this is P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Another thing that Deborah Lynn Rosenbaum, I never can say that right, but she loves that stuff. And I do too. It's really neat. I just splash it around, let it mingle with your water puddles, and it gives it some texture. And it's great for doing the vases and the glass. So I'm not going to get real detailed here, but I'm just kind of defining some highlights with that white. And I'm coming back with that the sepia, just really super watered down. And starting to shape my vase in there. Put a little shadow in there. So there'll be a shadow under the vase there, a little darker where all those flowers are cast their shadow. I'll come back with just some water, just to break it up. Blend it up a little bit, just a tiny bit. We're going to put another layer on, so I'm not worried about it at this point. But the more and more you paint, the more it starts to develop and look like a painting and not just a mess. So I'm going to add some more red on there because I want those to be nice red roses. And I'm just kind of doing little dots, little brush marks in a circle. Because now I'm thinking, okay, they're roses. Roses have lots of little petals. So I want to have that blotchy enough to where I'm going to be able to see those. Now it's all dry. It's been sitting there. Good way to test it is the back of your wrist. And if you don't feel any cold, then you know it's dry. And I just bought a fresh pack of micron markers. These are all number 5. What I really like about these markers is the tip on them is great. And it's also a pigment ink. So pigment ink will last longer. And they are acid free. So it's, for fine art, you can use this and not worry about taking the quality away from your art, like if a Sharpie or something is not pigment ink. So these are better for that. Plus these tips on there are very hard. They stay nice and sharp. So the whole pack is number 5 because I use those the most. So I'm going to try to get one out of here without getting them all out of there, and I don't know. Let's rip open the back a little, see if we can't get one out. I'm going to have to rip it open a little more and hope all the other pens don't fall out, and then I forget which ones are new and which ones are half used. But see, it's a number 5. It says there on the cap. Right there, and there's, 8, 10, 12. They keep getting bigger. But I like them. There it says pigment ink right on the marker itself. So we're going to get started drawing all the little petals. It's kind of like doodling. You don't have to be precise. You can scribble. It still looks good. Remember, we're going for a whimsical, fun, loose painting. So I'm just starting in the middle. The middle of the roses, of course, the petals are tighter together. And I start with just a little half circle, and then I do C shapes all the way around that half circle, starting my C shape behind the petal that's in front of it. So they overlap. And what's really fun is when you're looking into the paint and the splashes and the white and everything, you can see little folds that the petals develop, and you can outline those. And then as you're working, you want to get bigger and bigger with your petals. So the outside petals, there might only be 5 that go around the entire rose, or maybe even less. But I'm looking at the paint splotches and drawing around them, and then drawing what I want to be on there. So I'm not necessarily staying in the lines. I'm going to just draw my rose, but using the paint that's underneath it as a guide, but not necessarily like I'm tracing anything. I'm still just freehand drawing on top of the watercolor. So whenever I can get the opportunity to see a lighter spot in there, I'll draw my petal around the lighter spot, and then I'll draw the folds that the petals might be curled up. So you kind of have to know some drawing skills, but if you're not a great drawer, you can always trace something right over the top of this. So if you find a rose, like when I first learned to do this, it was in a coloring book. We got a coloring book, and then we traced the flower onto our painting. So this was another artist, Sharon Rapp, who I took my beginning watercolor classes with. She's a wonderful teacher out of Ohio. But so that's how we did it. We kind of just made our splotches, then traced flowers from a coloring book over the top of our splotches, and then drew on top of that. So if you don't have drawing skills, there's always a way. If there's a will, there's a way. That's what they say. So you can see I'm just kind of making up some of these petals just because they need to be there to balance my rose. So in those dark spots that I put in, that's my center, and then I'm just working my way around. And over the top of the white, it's harder to draw, but you can do it, but it really starts to cake up on top of your pen, so you'll have to have a little pad next to you that you can scribble that off and get the white off your tip of your pen, and then you can go on. There, see, that was pretty quick. We already got a bunch of them in there. Of course, it is speeded up a little bit, but not all that much. Yeah, so we're just gonna look into those splotches, like ink splotches, when we go to the psychiatrist. I don't know, is that really true? When I was a kid, that was always the thing in a cartoon or something. And you just try to visualize those petals and the folds, and, carving out those highlights. I like to draw around as many highlights as I can. And keep working your way around the painting. So now we'll speed it up a little bit so you don't have to watch it as long, because you're kind of getting the idea. That's a little rosebud up there. Maybe a little petal is off to one side. Another little rosebud I found in here. So I didn't intentionally paint any rosebuds, but they just kind of showed up. So there we go. We'll highlight them. We'll outline them. Yeah, and just keep drawing. It's really fun if you're a doodler. You'll love this. Yeah, just it'll be your own style. Doesn't have to stay in the lines like I said. Just nice and whimsical and loose. This one didn't have any top petals, but I'm just going to draw them on there. And then I'm going to, let some of that ink just be on the outside. The paint, the paint be on the outside of the flower. That's okay. We got another one over here to do. Just let you watch that and enjoy the music a little bit. Doing the stems and the leaves. I'm drawing the little veins in the leaves. When you do the stems in the vase, we painted those highlights in with the white, so don't draw over them. Remember, those would be on the outside, but it's a clear vase, so it's glass, you can look through it, so we're seeing those stems inside the vase. To me, this is just very relaxing. I could do this all day. Sometimes I do. I'm just kind of scribbling around the leaves. See that? Just trying to make it loose. Making my own thing. Draw a little stem, skipping those highlighted parts in the glass. And see, it's starting to look more and more cohesive. Yet very loose, very artsy. I'm just drawing these little stems out here, but I can even draw my own stems a little bit more just with the marker itself. Even though there's no paint there, I wanted to have a few little wispy branches just to kind of fill it out a little bit. Draw some more branches. And I got my arm right over the painting, but there you go. Now you can see it. Okay, now put some branches off to the side. Give it a little bit of balance. My dad taught me how to do that. Just draw a squiggly line, and then you can draw the other branches off of the points of the squiggly line. So here I'm going to just outline my vase a bit with my marker. A little bit around the rim where it would kind of tuck in, be a little bit more defined, a little bit in the back of the vase. But see how we just did it sketchy. Just do it sketchy. Or do whatever you want. But I did it sketchy. Yeah, we'll put a little bit of definition in the bottom of the vase there. And now I'm going to go back, and some of those lines I like to thicken them up, so I'm just going to draw over the top of a few of them, more of the outside ones. Just kind of put little connecting dots here and there, just kind of a cute little look. And draw those lines a little thicker here and there, and in the center I might want to deepen them up a bit. You could use different size markers. I like the number 12 too. It's much bolder than the number 5. So now we're going to paint right on top. You can paint right on top of these micron markers and they won't smear. Now, if you did this with like a Sharpie or something, it'll smear. But you can just paint right on top of them. And what I'm doing now is I'm just painting in between. So just the background. I'm letting the stems and the leaves and the flowers stand out. Even if there's no other color and I just made up some stems, I'm outlining them, you know, letting them stand out and putting the paint in the background. So I like to use a deeper color in the center to just make the bouquet look fuller. Nothing wrong with leaving the light there too. That's another nice look. That's what Deborah Lynn would do, is leave a lot of white, and they look really great. So it's up to you. Use your artistic license there. But I'm going to put this blue a little bit deeper, and then as I work my way out to the background, I'll be very light. But I'm going to put it deep in the center. So I like to put the blue deeper as long as it is contained on all four sides, and so that it's not into the background, if that makes sense. So it remains in the center of the bouquet where I want it to look nice and tight. So deepening it up even a little bit more. I'm not going to where it would flow into the background just yet. So I'm just keeping it inside of the bouquet. And all those little teeny tiny places too get in there. So I'll use my smaller brush. And a little bit deeper right there. And now you can really see where those white splashes were from that Doc Martens, PH Doc Martens Bleed Proof White that we splashed on there. It made like beautiful highlights on my rose petals. And working my way out just a little bit lighter now. See that? And I'm just gonna, probably should be using a bigger brush, but I got started and I didn't want to switch it out because I don't want it to dry. I want to keep it wet. So I putting a lot of water on there and just taking that cobalt blue and just keeping a lot of water, especially on that edge right there, because there's nothing to blend it into, where on top you can have stopping points because of those branches that you drew. You can stop there and start again with the same shade. And the same thing coming around the top. Keeping it lighter, like there's a light side of the painting on the right, and then I'm going to make it darker now as we're coming around to the left side. I'll get it really dark so we can see a contrast, just to add interest to the painting, so it's not all the same. A friend of mine told me that each corner of your painting should look completely different from each other, and that's nice design. I like that idea too. So if I have lighter corners or darker corners, it brings focus into the center, which is the main theme of your painting. So I'm darkening this side up quite a bit. And it's already wet because I put that lighter wash on first, so now it'll all blend in. So just kind of bring it down a little bit, smooth it, wash, blend it down. There we go. So now that side's darker. There. So down here, I want to put a little shadow. So I'm using my Prussian blue. It's kind of grayed down. And then I'm also dipping into a little bit of that sepia. Really get that shadow going. And this is like an indentation right here in the lip of the jar, so I'm just gonna put a little dark in there and underneath that, and then some blue. This is the blue, so because there's blue behind it, so I want that blue to show through, but not too much of it, leaving white highlights still in my jar. Little shadow down there. And now wait for the end. I got a little technique that I learned that helps me out a lot. I'll show you that. Oh, let's see. Looking over my brushes here. I'm going to grab my quill. There, quill. Just like a calligraphy quill. You know what I'm going to do with that? I don't know. Put some of that sepia in there. Pretty thick paint, but enough where it'll flow. And then I'm going to sign my name with it. So you could sign it with the marker, but for paintings that you're not putting marker on and you want to sign your name nice and neat, it's so much easier than using a paintbrush. Just writing, right? So I just sign my name. And there's quite a bit that paint will go for. You can write a lot with it, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so in here I messed up a little bit. And now I got it too dark. Let's see, we'll just get a little bit of the trusty tissue here. And give it one quick dab. Dab, that's it. Now it matches. Okay, there it is. There it is. So we did watercolor, then ink, and then watercolor on top of the ink. So we did it 2 ways. All right. Well, thanks for watching my video. Remember to subscribe and press that like button if you would. If you enjoy my videos and you want to see more, press the bell. So until we see you again, peace and love be with you every day. And remember, be creative, be colorful, be SwiftArt. All right. Bye-bye. See you next time.